There were 10 what? Hi, I'm Kiana, also known as Missy Mickey Ami, and I've been on the internet for way too long. Stating the obvious, I've also been gone for way too long, but I'm here to gift you with an almost hour-long video about RainbowBrite. And today, I'm hoping that I can bring older and newer fans in one room while introducing my new project called Wisp to RainbowLand. With that, we're going to jump right in. My knowledge about RainbowBrite expanded by mere coincidence and a needed challenge for myself, which I'll discuss throughout the video. As things slowly started, I gained so much knowledge about RainbowBrite and her history, and I would grow to love her from a new perspective. Learning about her humble beginnings and her many opportunities to rebrand, it is obvious that she is a hidden gem. Now, did you know that there were 10 attempts to bring back RainbowBrite? This is one magical girl that struggles to win over the new generation. Maintaining her core fan base, RainbowBrite has attempted to grace the stage 10 times, with this year's recent attempt with a retro launch. Now, I'm assuming that the specific team that is working on this comeback has taken a nostalgic route. You can tell by the toys that have hit the shelves already at Five Below and Walmart. They are pretty much identical to the launches back in the 80s. But I say they take this route because once again, she is not really a hit with the new generation. And as wonderful as that is for the older fans alike, I truly think that there is room and opportunity for her to thrive with all ages. And that's where I come in. I managed to introduce and interest new and older fans with a rework and new story. Now, over on my TikTok, I've made videos about the process, story times, and I've even gone live. But there's a particular video with over 49,000 views on it. And I know that that's not a lot because there are videos with millions and millions of views. But this particular video is important to me because not only were there newer fans, but there were older fans within the comments expressing their love and interest about what I've done so far. And I know, once again, it's not a lot. But I wanted to really bring this topic over here on YouTube to provide that same opportunity that was given to me over there on TikTok here. So if you're interested and still want to learn more, please like, share, and comment just so this can get spread to many more other fans, new and old. And to be truly transparent, I am not and have not worked with anyone who is on the team that is currently doing her rework. I truly just want her to succeed in today's world where she is most definitely needed. And I do understand that risk-taking in this line of work is very expensive. And though it does seem easier to just reopen the vault, we also need to understand our audience. Being Gen Z, I do believe that I have a closer connection to older and younger demographics. So from a pop culture perspective, I do believe that I have a chance to open up a rainbow door in everyone's home by connecting with an audience that I relate to. Stepping away from scripts, let's get a little bit more organic and tiptoe back to the challenge that I brought up in the beginning and that started this all. When I think about art, I think about a tree. It has many branches, music, animation, comics, everything, the whole 9 yards. And you would think somebody that has been drawing for 15, 20 plus years, 12 years professionally, that they would know every single thing on their branch. It wasn't until last year that I discovered what visual development was. Yeah, embarrassing. And though I'm no stranger to lying in my own ignorance just to educate myself, I didn't know anything. I promise, I didn't know. But I think there was also some branches that I was just not comfortable navigating through, such as environmental and scenery work. And these things were important to me because I was doing personal projects that would consist of these twigs and branches, and I just wasn't comfortable doing so. And this is where it all started. I decided that I was going to challenge myself and get a little bit more comfortable and familiar with those branches by doing reworks. Now, it's much more popular and kind of known as fan art nowadays, where you take something that you already know within the vault and making it your own. Now, if you don't know what the vault is, it is honestly this void of all the existing IPs that we grew up with. For example, Codename Kids Next Door, Powerpuff Girls, JoJo's Circus, Roly Poly Oly, and so on and so on and so on. This vault is typically used within the industry for when we are wanting some things and they aren't willing to take risk and they would rather bring back something to either reboot it or give us a sequel. So, with that said, within the art community, this is a way to also communicate and reconnect with those who have similar childhoods or a similar love for this type of IP. and it's typically used under the hashtag draw this in your style. Now, that's what made this even more fun because I've already done challenges like that before, using such IPs as the Trolls with the Z, the Y2K Girlies, the Care Bears, as well as Strawberry Shortcake. And I've not only posted that Strawberry Shortcake post not once but twice, but it's gotten over 10,000 plus views. So I assumed that this was going to be the same way when I decided to choose RainbowBrite. And before I get into everything else that I'm about to say, I specifically chose RainbowBrite because though it was rare to see RainbowBrite fan art, I just assumed that it wasn't their time. There was multiple times where I would post some of my fan art, such as the Care Bears, and it wasn't like it was something that was being posted or trending around that time. But after I would post it, places like ColourPop and Hot Topic were then posting some of their merch that they were getting ready to launch for the season that contained those characters on them. So I just assumed it was going to be like that one-for-one moment that we were going to have. We're all on the same page. So when it came to my surprise that did not happen, that's what started the spark and fire that went up my butt. I shouldn't have been that surprised, but I was truly surprised that it did not get the same recognition or love that most of the work that I posted gotten. And it's not like everything that I post goes viral or gets thousands to 10,000s of likes and views, but like I assumed, I thought it was going to be like a twin telepathy thing where once I posted it, there were going to be other people posting in and companies that were coming in. I'm like, yay, look, RainbowBrite, which was true because like I mentioned in the beginning, back in 2023 is when they announced the first toy line again that would spark up their 10th attempt to reboot her. But once again, it wasn't that large uproar that I was assuming that was going to be. It wasn't the popularity that I thought she was going to gain, which she honestly deserves. Which kind of brings me up to our first part that I just need to address, the art style. If you notice that art style or know anything about my art style, that isn't my art style. When I decided to do this, I was like, this is not a personal project, so let's make this as fun as possible. So I decided to use Adventure Time as my base for this art style, using also characters from other IPs such as Goo from A Foster's Home of Imaginary Friends. I just wanted this to be fun. I needed this to be something interesting because learning is already something really hard. And though I want to take this as serious as possible, I also have to make this exciting. I have no teachers, no rubric. I have nothing to actually teach me visual development, environmental work, and me who struggles with learning. I just did not want this to be boring. So I taken the chance and the opportunity to really stretch my legs out. But using the song Video Killed the Radio Star as an example for RainbowBrite is the perfect analogy for why Adventure Time was used as the base. Using Adventure Time was important because if you know anything about Adventure Time, the first season was very random, charming, funny, and just sporadic. Getting into the later seasons though, the Ice King gets a story, Marceline gets a story. It was such an adventure that thousands and thousands of people would tune in every week, even on hiatus, begging people to get back to watching this show and getting it running. With that being said, that is where RainbowBrite lacks. RainbowBrite, if you ever watched or seen an episode or have rewatched an episode recently, is the most lackluster thing I've ever seen in my life. And maybe there's some other, factors in this, such as I'm not born in the 80s, so this is a different time. What you see now on television was not approved to be seen on television in the 80s. Secondly, I'm watching this as a 26 to 27 year old. Babes, I'm not a child. So I need more substance. And that's what it was lacking. Substance. And nowadays, once again, you'll see substance such as Adventure Time, Steven Universe, Gravity Falls on more cartoons and children's media. So that shouldn't necessarily be an issue. But that's something that RainbowBrite and its many attempts at its reboots, specifically the one back in 2014 where they did an animated series that once again you can find on YouTube to this day, it lacks substance. There is nothing that would make you actually want to watch this other than your nostalgia and excitement to see Rainbow. And that's where I started. And it was a very rocky start. Now, hopefully you've been paying attention to this time lapse, but we made some really significant changes, such as making Wisp disappear so far in the story. Now, I also want to mention that the part of the story that I am allowing you guys to see is technically part 2 of part 1. And that didn't come until after I decided to change the story. So once again, RainbowBrite just lacked a lot of substance. As I was doing my research, a lot of the story didn't make sense. Like her and Brian. Brian is this little boy, I think was in the second episode, because the very first episode was a lengthy movie just to get everyone interested into RainbowBrite. But he was a kid who was like really upset about, I think, a baseball game or something. And Rainbow was like, oh my God, that child is sad. And broke one of the cardinal rules in my head of her not being known. Like, her existence is not supposed to be known to the world. She is just supposed to be doing her job. And her being a child, and a hard-headed one at that, decides to still, even after Starlight mentions to her, which is her horse, don't go down there. And she goes anyways. Now, there are other characters such as the colored children, which are all the rainbow kids who are in charge of their rainbow sprites, who are in charge of their specific rainbow sprinkles. I think that's what they call them. And then there's other characters such as Murky, Lurky, the princess, or I think she's the princess of the Shadow Dark. I can't remember everything. I changed a lot of the names, only because some of those names, once again, lacked not necessarily substance, but required a lot more substance, required a little bit more fun, and needed an update. So please, if you're an older fan and you're just finding out about anything that I'm doing, bear with me. I'm sorry. A lot of people liked the changes. You might not be one of them, so I'm sorry. But once again, the story just didn't make sense, and I think that was one of the biggest issues that you will see throughout the entire series. It just lacked a lot of substance. It was mainly supposed to be a commercial. And just to elaborate on it was supposed to be a commercial, let's get into that too. So, advertising to children is almost a big no-no. It really is a big no-no. And to be quite specific, I like watching old cartoon blocks, provided by the Lost Media community. Thank you, Lost Media community. And I also like watching documentaries about toys and, for example, the Netflix series, The Toys That Made Us and the Movies That Made Us. So a lot of my knowledge came from those series. With that being said, one of the things that was brought to my attention is that cartoons are just commercials to sell, children's toys. And I didn't understand what that meant until I seen it firsthand. I was watching a cartoon block. It was a Mutant Teen Ninja Turtles cartoon block, I think specifically for not Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon. And it was an episode where they introduced the tactical van to the team. And probably towards the end of the episode, they were then presented with a commercial, the children, that would give them the opportunity to also own the tactical van. And knowing that honestly was a little bit scary, because once again, the main reason why you cannot advertise to children the same way you advertise to adults is because they, not all, but some, are not well rounded in the art of advertising, and it can be seen as manipulation. But knowing this, it kind of begs the bigger question: what is entertainment? What is entertainment from the eyes of consumption? And when you want to be advertised to, you don't want to know it's a commercial. So a child doesn't necessarily know that they're being advertised to, especially when you're using cartoons as a method to get the toy more, popularity. However, when we are talking about those things as an adult and from an adult's perspective, what are the things that make us want to, buy these things and consume items, things that aren't necessarily necessities, but we go out of our way to either do for the sake of enjoyment, self-care, and so on. And nowadays, once again, bringing up the vote, they bring it out just to entertain us, and they know that those things work because it has worked for years. However, taking risk is a very expensive route to do, and it's very rare that we get new media. So when you do these things, such as bring back the Ninja Turtles for the Upteen Time, or Scooby-Doo, or the Flintstones, they do it specifically in hopes that those who grew up on it will then introduce it to their kids, nieces, nephews, friends, as well as students. And the issue comes in with what some people would say about Disney. It doesn't have substance. It's the same story over and over again, which I would like to argue, and this is an opinion, an unpopular opinion at that, where it's just like, once again, Disney advertises to children. Children have such little understanding about the world around them and some of these concepts that it's probably best that they keep it the same. As long as you're comfortable knowing that it's the same content that you grew up on that will later develop and help you navigate through the world, you should be comfortable showing your children this. And any other conversations that you would like to express to your children, it is honestly up to you to do. And it's not their job to necessarily teach, but introduce the conversation. So, with that being said, you also want to be entertained. Like when I was growing up, SpongeBob was one of the things that my parents also didn't mind watching along with us because there was some sort of entertainment meant for them. Courage the Cowardly Dog, Hey Arnold, and so on. With that being said, I think that's where RainbowBrite misses the mark. That it does not interest them, the adults that are now advertising and showing their children this, and interesting them nor their children. Since RainbowBrite lost her luster back in the 80s, I doubt that she would get the same love and popularity due to there not being any popularity and love after the 1980s. There was nothing keeping us there. It was the same stuff and it just didn't move with the times. And that's their issue. It just never moved with the times. So I chose Adventure Time because not only did it move with the times, it was familiar. But if you notice throughout any of the story times that I have introduced about my series, you'll notice that I have also taken the time to not only add to the story, rework the story, and like I mentioned, change a couple of things, which is also something that is considered risk-taking. It is still something that is worth navigating through, because one of the biggest issues for RainbowBrite was there is nothing worth staying for outside of her cuteness, which is the plus, which is the appeal. There's already an existing fan base that already enjoys everything that she represents, how she looks, and also she has the opportunity to blend in with the rest of the already trending media that is being provided to us. With the surgence of Japanese media such as anime, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, and so forth, magical girls are no stranger to us anymore. So there's honestly no reason why RainbowBrite shouldn't be thriving right now. So after all this research and all these things that I've noticed about the series, I think the only thing that is making RainbowBrite stay exactly where she is in time is the lack of substance that she is providing. Even with the 2014 series, it just wasn't enough substance, and honestly it was even more boring than the 1980s version. And the 1980s version, I wouldn't necessarily say it was boring, but it just wasn't captivating enough for me to be like, oh my god, I'm excited for season 2. Not at all. So let's introduce a couple of things that I wanted to bring forth into my series. Wisp to RainbowLand, a retelling of RainbowBrite. Starting off with the relationship between Wisp and Brian. Brian is coming back from RainbowLand after helping Rainbow and the Rainbow Kids defeat Murky for the Upteen Time. Before I continue, I would like to mention that Lurky, the secondary character to Murky, is now replaced by minions called the Lurks. This is important in the story. Brian would then come home and be approached by his father, who would announce to him that they are moving closer to his grandparents in order to help them now that they are older. Brian excited because he is no stranger to the city and still has friends there. Then remembers that he needs to let Wisp know. Also remembering a conversation that he had with her earlier about Wisp never growing up, was more concerned about how he was going to maintain her identity. He then would call Wisp using the magic bracelet that was given to him by Wisp to communicate, so he knows when to get picked up for the many adventures that they go on to meet up at that spot. Once there, he would speak to Rainbow and let her know about everything that just occurred. Saddened by this, Brian let her know that once he gets settled into his new home with his grandparents, that he and her will reconnect once again. For the time being, there will be a new meetup spot and time where we would not only exchange gifts as well as go on adventures. Nothing will necessarily change, but there will be a lot of changes. He is now in charge of taking care of his family and making sure that he is also being well adjusted in school. After heading home before the night end, Wisp calls on him one last time through the bracelet. She wanted to know, since aging was the issue, if there was any possible way for her to age up and actually move along in time with him. Was there any way that this would change? Should she come around more? Are they able to see each other like they used to? And Brian would let her know that even if that was the case, you are still an amazing friend. Nothing is to change. I am just now tasked with responsibilities that would need my assistance. And so I don't want you to worry your head. As soon as I get settled into my bedroom, we will navigate the next available location spot where we will meet up and leave those gifts. So till then, you have a wonderful night, and I'll talk to you as soon as I can. Once settled, Brian and Wisp for the last 2 months would meet up, drop off gifts, as well as letters, and every once in a while go on adventures with each other through RainbowLand. It was something that Murky and Nightshade would notice. One of the most second important changes is the King of Shadows name. The King of Shadows is a lot to say, so I shortened the name to Nightshade. These two concocted a plan that would keep Brian and Wisp away from each other, so by the time they were supposed to meet up with each other, it would be a longer meetup, that they would spend a little bit more time hanging out with each other. Now, both of them were very much distracted. As mentioned, Brian had a lot of responsibilities back at home, and he had a lot of adjusting to do. He was so busy that he ended up forgetting to leave a letter and letting her know that this week they were not able to meet up with each other, that he was actually going to go to the dance just so he can have better interaction with his friends. And when the time came, Wisp came to their location since a lot of the mischief and schemes have died down. She thought it was safe and met up at the location, where she would wait for almost 30 minutes, and she started to get a little weary. She decided that she would go to his home just to see if everything was okay. Upon arrival, she noticed that there were friends and family getting ready and taking pictures. She noticed that Brian was getting ready to go to a dance. Saddened by this, Wisp was also very proud of Brian. She noticed that her hard work as being his friend and doing exactly what she was meant to do when they first met, which was making sure that he was always a happy person, actually came true. She's done her job and she did her task. So, Wisp decided that the best thing to do was to end the friendship here. She would crawl through the window and leave the gifts and one last letter on his bed, letting him know how proud she was of him, how amazing of a friend she was, and how she would be watching over him. As she leaves to go back to RainbowLand, Wisp was very distraught and sad, but she knew that what she was doing was the right thing. Upon arriving back to RainbowLand, she would meet up with Starlight and Twinkle and inform her about Nightshade and Murky's mischievous plan. Nightshade would task Murky to assist him with finding the 5 forbidden black gemstones that will help him gather everything that he needs to take over RainbowLand. He only managed at this time to capture one of these. While Murky could continue doing this, Nightshade manages to take a few of the sprites and the rainbow children back up to the pits with him as Murky continues his search. Devastated and alarmed by this, she wasn't sure what she could do. However, there is this one mysterious stone that most people are looking for, the most powerful stone that lives amongst everyone in RainbowLand, called Dust Opal. Dust Opal is one of the most rarest and powerful gemstones in the land. Dust Opal is such a hard find that usually, in order to find it, you would need to see the dust moths. These dust moths are located about 15 to almost 30 meters away from the actual stone itself. However, the way that dust works is you only have a certain amount of time to reach them. These moths are there to protect that opal since it is a very powerful substance. Lucky for Wisp, while Twink was out helping other sprites with the mining, he would discover and stumble upon a dust opal moth. Not as powerful as the actual dust opal, but powerful enough to assist with this exact issue. He would then tell her he captured it, and they would have to head back to Twink's location, where she would have to put it inside her scepter. Once at Twink's home, Starlight and Twink would assist Wisp with her scepter, letting her know how everything should go. After everything went according to plan, Wisp would task Twink to assist any remaining sprites up to Rainbow Mountain, and anyone else who was not captured by Nightshade would come with her and collect the rest of the remaining sprites and the Rainbow Children at the pits. Once there, she gave everyone their instructions, and she headed off to the highest quarters where Nightshade would wait for her. A long battle would go on, and even a couple of words were exchanged. Words that would hit Wisp so hard that she didn't know how to feel. She would then capture Nightshade in a prison, and from there, she had to make one of the hardest decisions possible. Once back at RainbowLand, and some of RainbowLand was restored, she was then asked, can she be alone with Nightshade? They then would exchange a few words that would help her determine what her next move was. She'd asked him, do you really think those things of me? Do you really think that I'm not a good person and not a good friend? Nightshade responding, what I do with my friends, you consider wrong. You consider evil. I'm always trapped here. I'm always looked down upon. I'm never doing anything just for the sake of me. So, whatever you decide, you do what's best. But yes, I do think that you are a horrible person and a horrible friend. After that conversation, Wisp would go out to the rest of the people back in RainbowLand and let them know that whatever happens to him, it is up to the people of RainbowLand. Anytime that she helped, it was to help everyone prevent Nightshade from taking over RainbowLand. And they've done this multiple times, to the point where what is the point of letting him out of this prison or leaving her up to this task? So she said, once again, whatever you guys decide to do, you do it. But she wanted to let everyone know that she will be taking a minor break, just like Brian did, to enjoy the real world. She would come back every once in a while, not only to leave updates, but to just hang out with her friends. Stunned and shocked by her decision, they loved Wisp and wanted her to do whatever made her happy. So they celebrated one last time, and then the next day, Wisp would go off into the real world. And that's where our story will begin. Now, before finishing this, I wasn't sure halfway did I want to tell the whole retelling of this story, but I realized not a lot of people knows this story. And I also, before getting into the rest of Wisp's story, because that's not actually where the story begins, but it begins for her and why we are where we at in this story, it is important to bring up one of the biggest plots of this story, and that is Nightshade, which is the King of Shadows. To make this a little bit more interesting, I will be taking that exact video that is posted on my TikTok, and you can watch the rest of the videos in that playlist on my TikTok here with the visuals, because I put my heart into that, and it would just be boring without them. Once everything has been said and done, then I'll continue with the remaining story, just so you're not left off or, wondering what happened. All right, story time. Now, I know we're not supposed to be rooting for the villain, but I need you to hear me out. So you're a star, one of the most powerful stars out there, and you want to be more powerful than all the stars in the galaxy. So you get the great idea to destroy other stars, specifically elder stars, one of the wisest and oldest stars in the galaxy. And while you await for trial, your sisters are in charge of you. One of your sisters, who is in charge of Earth, decides to banish you there. You start to dim. Your light starts to just barely glow. But somehow, you ended up falling in love. You two were so inseparable that you decided to have a daughter that you would later name Sienna. This will remain a secret from your sisters for a while until they notice. And from there, your love means nothing because you created another cardinal sin, creating a demigod without permission or a blessing. So, your sisters have to fuse together to make sure that they can prevent you from doing whatever you plan on doing. Enraged, you forget that you never mentioned about who you were in your past life. All you know was that this person loved you for who you were and didn't deem you to be the monster that everyone else did. So you did everything you could to protect her and your daughter. However, you were taken down with ease and quickly banished to the darkest corner of a world where your other sister rules. After witnessing the love of her life being ripped out of her arms, scared and confused, your sisters erased her memory and imprisoned your daughter in a rose quartz coated star and handed her back to you as punishment. Would you read this? Now that we're a little bit more caught up with our antagonist and his whole sole purpose, a couple things I just want to mention. If you hear any additional sounds, it is either my husband or the neighbors. It's later into the night as I'm recording this, so they're just all settling in and enjoying the rest of their nights. So before we proceed and get into the rest of the story, I just would like to analyze the video just to give anybody who might be confused and are older fans as well as newer fans a little bit more insight. So the King of Shadows once again is a star who is a very powerful star in his own right, however just really wanted to enhance his powers. He did it in the wrong way and he broke a couple of cardinals and along the way. Now his sisters is one, a character that already exists and a character that I added. One of the characters that already exists is the main character in the very beginning that you see, that you kind of rarely see actually, in the movie that actually started this all. And that is the Sphere of Light. The Sphere of Light is the character who would grant Wisp her very first task within RainbowLand and saving it from the Kings of Shadows, as well as gift Wisp her name to RainbowBrite. And then the second sister is a sister that I named, and her name is Iris, and she is actually the ruler of RainbowLand. Now, I'm not going to get too in depth about what else will be going on throughout this and uncovering a lot of the things because I really want to get you guys excited. However, let's just make a couple of things clear. The Sphere of Light is the ruler of Terra, which is Earth, so technically she is the sun, and then Iris, being the ruler of RainbowLand, is a goddess at this point of rainbows and the color spectrum, so that's why they are very important. Now throughout the series, I will say you won't see as much about Iris. There will be a great twist about that, but the best part about this comic, at least to me, is that there is so much room for change. I'm not gonna lie, since a lot of this project was based off of the spark that was formed from actually posting and not getting the recognition that RainbowBrite deserves. A lot of this stuff is still in the phases of concept, meaning there is so much room for us as a team, as a community, to work together and make this something that you might actually enjoy. And I won't guarantee that everything and every concept given to me is going to go within this story, but a lot of it will help me continue developing the story. So as long as you're riding with me and staying up to date, you have a chance and an opportunity to help me continue developing a story that is just coming along. So I'm really happy to say that I get to work with a community one-on-one as we try to continue this. Now, before continuing with Wisp and her journey, I would like to just get into Sienna's story just so it makes a little bit more sense. So, after Wisp decides to leave, the King of Shadows has enough magic still from his spear, because he still has access to his spear after the ultimate battle that they had, to kind of send a little bit of force back to the castle where Murky would come back and notice he's gone, the town is celebrating, and X, Y, and Z. During that time, while Wisp was giving her speech, he sends out that force, and that force was to grab something and Murky's attention. But that something was an object that would knock the star, which is his daughter, out of her prison, because there was never an issue of getting her out. It was just always, there's no point in having my daughter in this if I'm not necessarily ruling. But now that he's in prison, he really needs his daughter to help finish out the task that he wanted. So during that time, while everyone's celebrating Wisp and her disappearance and him knowing this was honestly something that he needed. Now, will I say this is all according to his plan? I won't say that. However, this is where she kind of grows up with Wisp without Wisp kind of knowing about her existence. So now moving on with the remainder of the story with Wisp. As she is in the real world, she comes across a family who is so desperate and was willing to adopt some kids, and was unsuccessful after leaving the orphanage. Wisp, overhearing that conversation, follows them and waits to the wee of the night to come and presents herself, since she is still very young looking and appearing while she's in the real world. She knocks on the door. They are concerned, rightfully so, because there's a child at like 5 o'clock in the morning who is like knocking at their door, needing their assistance. And she is quickly adopted into their family. A year goes by and they are celebrating Wisp's birthday. Now, she doesn't necessarily have a birthday, but she would tell them that her birthday is the day that she was adopted. That day, Wisp, really trying to adjust herself without visiting Brian as much, because that's another reason why she went to the real world, just to really see if she can fit in and just adjust herself. As mentioned, she's done everything she possibly can to really help everybody back in RainbowLand, and now that the problem is technically diffused and gone for the time being, there is really no need for her to be around, and so this was an opportunity for her to just enjoy being a kid. That's what she came to do before she came to RainbowLand, and she's going to continue doing that. So she wanted to go back to the orphanage that her parents decided, or first where she first met her family, in that orphanage. And she brought cupcakes so she could celebrate with the kids and just give them hopes that one day they'll be adopted. That same day is when she meets Sunny. Sunny is a girl who actually was adopted from the orphanage, and she was coming back that same day on her birthday just so she can hang out with her friends and let them know the same things. And once Wisp picked up on that, she was like, that's the type of girl I want to hang out with. And from that day on, Wisp and Sunny became the best of friends. Their parents did whatever they can just to make sure that they had matching outfits and hung out, and there were sleepovers. And throughout the years, like I mentioned, they become the best of friends. Now, this is where the story actually continues from. So the girls are getting ready. They're now 18. They're prepping to go to college. And before they go to college, they planned a 3-month-long trip to travel, hang out, and just do everything they needed to do before they get really serious and just enjoy school for what it is. And they just got done packing. And before the trip, they decided, specifically Wisp, that she was going to get concert tickets to their favorite singer, and they were going to enjoy the night before they set out for their travels. So, while that is going on, the girls, where our story begins, is now coming back from their concert. As they're getting ready to head back to the hotel, they stopped at the convenience store and said, hey, let's grab a couple of snacks before we go back to the hotel and get ready to end the night. That's when they walked in. Wisp is very shocked that she gets a call. As mentioned, though nothing has necessarily changed, she goes back and visits a lot back in RainbowLand. The only changes that would occur, honestly, was Wisp did grow. I know that sounds like a shocker, because once again, I kind of skipped over, not necessarily skipped over, I kind of forgot to mention why she grows, but I'll get more into that as well. But she grows, and when she grows, the rainbow children grow as well. So those are really some of the changes that you'll notice throughout the story, and something that needs to be explained, which I already have an explanation for it, but I won't mention it right now, only because let's keep a little mystery in here. But nothing really has changed. She has visited them. They've gone on journeys. They traveled. They've even helped expand RainbowLand. So a couple of places have changed or have developed during that time. But she is shocked because she gets a call from Twink just to alert her and says something is gone completely wrong. And also Sienna. Now, not too many people knew about Sienna, but Rainbow did. She doesn't really remember why she remembers, but she does remember that the Spirit of Light told her about some of what happened and the reason why the King of Shadows, which is Nightshade, is banished back down to Earth. Well, back to RainbowLand. So she is alerted. She wonders, because she hasn't seen her the entire time during that visit, what she looks like, what is going on. It's mad and chaos. However, she is getting ready to go on this trip, and she does not want to ruin this. Throughout her friendship with Sunny, though she's never mentioned anything about RainbowLand and Sunny always had a clue that there was that there was something always going on that she was unaware of, that she was out of the loop about. And this time, Wisp cannot afford for Sunny, one, not to know, but she couldn't afford not to go back and help her family, especially since there is a danger. And this is the first time anyone has alerted them about a danger. So what she did was, earlier in that time, Sunny really liked it with bracelet, the same bracelet that she would also give Brian, as well as she would give to the Rainbow Kids so they could communicate. And so she mentioned that she would make her one before the concert started, and so she did. However, this time she activated it with a little bit of rainbow magic, and she gave her that bracelet and said, listen, I know I promised that we do some amazing things, and I've also promised you a couple of times that when the time is right, I will let you know everything when it's right. And this is everything. Put on this bracelet and try to keep up with me. Wisp would storm out of the convenience store and run into the woods where she knows that she can just go to RainbowLand, but she needed to hurry. In that time, Sunny is just so confused and just like, I don't know what's going on. And Wisp is like, just come on. And they dash towards the woods. However, Wisp is just a little bit faster. Obviously, this is urgent and she's more aware about the situation. Sunny is a little lost and kind of lose track of Wisp. And that's where we have them running through the woods and just trying to find each other. Now, that's kind of where the story is now. Now, do I have more to the story? Yes. Have I finished it? No. I have not finished the rest of that story yet because I lack a little time, and there is so much that you have to do concept wise, world building wise. Like, I've gotten out of my way to really get in depth with posing and how I have to interact with the characters for the Rainbow Children, as well as the lurks and so much more. A couple of things that I'd like to mention. A lot of things are new, like what is dust opal, and also the sprites. At some point I reached out to Homer and I was so devastated because I did not put in any type of details about what I wanted to do. As someone who was reaching out for a license, I just mentioned that I was interested in obtaining one. And a lot of people are like, when I did post this story, a lot of people were like, why would you think that they would give you a license? I was like, well, there's a lot of opportunity for people to grab licensing because that helps expand their media and consumption when it comes up to, delivering and getting their fans things that they want without necessarily having to put their money and their teams into doing it. So I just assumed that it was the same thing, and then I got an email probably a week later. This is the second attempt. There was a first attempt, and I think that email was a dud, and so I came in with a second attempt, and immediately it was we already have everything we need for RainbowBrite. And at that time I was still quite confused because I think I was still at that time learning that there was to be another comeback from her, but that put another fire up my butt. And I was like, I'm determined to make this work even if I don't use RainbowBrite herself as the thing. I will change everything. And in that process I took my time, calmed down, and I read about fair use laws, and I realized there is too much that I've taken already to kind of make this my own story. Like, I just said, you know what, this will still continue being a fandom, a free one that people can access. However, I am still going to change it because that's the purpose of a rework. So a lot of other things have changed, like, not all of them, but some of the sprites are not the cute little cotton sprites. Some of them are like little nymphs that have little belly button stars that are now that I think about it, are inspired by the Y2K girly trolls. And then a couple other things. Why can't Starlight be a Pegasus unicorn? That also changes. Well, not specifically Starlight. So I do want to make it to where, since Magic and RainbowLand is kind of charm based and gem based, that Wisp also becomes her own version of RainbowBrite. So I think that is also a great opportunity to give some black girls some actual magic. And Wisp will give her own, not Wisp, I'm sorry, Sunny, because they're such close friends. I mix them up. Sunny will also get her own horse and her own transformation outfit, and will navigate through her friendships with the Rainbow Children, because obviously it's a little bit awkward. She's the only person who does not and is not aware about RainbowLand. And I will say some friends are a little bit hurt. It might be a little bit distant to Sunny due to her relationship with Wisp, because they probably assume, hint hint, that Sunny is the reason why Wisp even stays. Like, at first I'm pretty sure they assumed that it was Brian that did this, and some probably hold a lot of animosity towards Brian, who Wisp barely visits. Every once in a while she'll watch over him during practices and just checks on him as promised, but she doesn't make her presence known. Or at least she believes that Brian is unaware of this. So will Brian make a comeback? I'm not 100% sure. I was thinking he does, or she visits him. However, as of now, he's sort of written out of the story, because once again, it does not make sense. And I think that Sunny's interaction with Wisp makes a little bit more sense, at least for the story that I'm telling. But there's so much that I just want to navigate through. So there will be Pegasus going on to what Dust Opal is. Once again, my favorite gemstone is Opal. Now, if I was born in October, I'd be an October Libra. However, I am a September Libra, so that means that my stone is Sapphire. But giving me a couple more days, I would have the most beautiful stone known to man, which is Opal, in my opinion. But since Opal has this chromatic look and a lot of rainbows, I thought it's weird that they have not introduced a character that has Opal, as well as just the stone Opal. So this is our introduction to gemstones at a deeper level, and that is also what separates my story from the already existing story that most of us know about. There is more depth. There is a reason why she now grows, because we never got into why she was a child. It was just she never aged, which that's cool. But once again, the one thing that made RainbowBrite hard to, take in and want to continue consuming is the fact that the story never got any deeper than a child who does random adventures, which is cool. But even Strawberry Shortcake added additional characters, more adventures, and she went in. Same thing with My Little Pony. We went in depth. We added more characteristics to characters, and that's just something that just was never given to RainbowBrite. It was just her. And though there were, the other characters, the Rainbow Children, it just wasn't enough. So I'm adding more depth into the relationship between the Rainbow Children. The villain actually has a what, when, how, and why, as well as we're utilizing characters that barely gotten any type of light. We're making sense of who's who, and I think that's what's going to really change the directory of the story, and at least the human interactions that are being placed in the story makes more sense. And I'm just hoping that with all of this, that everyone just has fun. Now, I will say, naughty me, when I started this, once again, I didn't do too much research, so I just noticed there was just a bunch of Rainbow Children, and I made 2 characters that were blue. Was I very knowledgeable that Buddy Blue was not how can I put it? There was 2 characters that were blue in my head, or at least there was 2 different drawings of Buddy, and I was just like, oh, that's cool. There's 2 blue characters, because there were 2 purple characters, Violet and Indigo. And I was like, oh, great. And then I was wrong. I was very much wrong. So now there's a cat. So there's even a new addition to our Rainbow Children. On top of the new additions that Mattel has gifted us, because once again, they gave us 3 additional characters along the way. So there's a lot that we will explore. I think my favorite part about this project ultimately is though this started to see if I could expand my environmental and scenery work, I've done little of that. And the work that I have done, like the Rainbow Mountain, where the water and the river specifically and their source of I guess liquid and RainbowBrite, I've done a couple of things there so far. I've drawn a castle. I do plan on doing more. I really want to venture into the pits. I think that is the most terrifying place so far to draw, because my ideas for it's wonderful. I see it in my head, but I'm once again very new to scenery, and it is a lot of work and risk taking that I'm doing with this. So yeah, bear with me on that. However, we're getting towards the end of the video, and I just want to thank everyone for sticking around, if you did stick around, for commenting, sharing. And I guess my last question, in hopes that we get some topics going, if there's not already a topic of interest, is if there was something that you wanted as an older fan, so this is a question for the older fans, that you don't see here and that you didn't see there in RainbowBrite, what would it be, and how do you think I can incorporate it? And as a newer fan, I honestly just want to hear how you feel about this. Do you like the art style? Is the story interesting enough for you? Is there a way that you can help me continue expanding on the story as well as the world? Just your insight is also helpful to me, because you're new. You are coming in like most of us. Like, I'm quite new to RainbowBrite, but I'm not new. I'm true to this. But I hope that I've given everything that I needed to give. If there's anything that I forgot, please trust and believe there will be a part 2 to this video. The part 2 is just giving you guys an update. You can also get free updates on my Patreon. And if you'd like, you can join my Patreon. I will be giving out free updates for this. And lastly, I just want to mention that I am thinking about crowdfunding for an art book. Now, since I'm not working with the team or working with Hallmark or have a license, I still want to make sure that I have time to do this comic. I have a lot of projects that I want to do, fashion and my own little personal projects. So a lot of that will be taking up most of my time, on top of commissions and clients. And since I work within the toy industry, I try to keep myself quite busy working all the time. But that does mean that things like this project, now that has become a more personal project, still does not have enough time for me to work on. So I am right now considering to crowdfund to give out art books. Now, the art books, I think I can legally still pass out for purchase. However, I know I cannot do that with the comics, because technically I will be taken away from the IP in a sense, since there's not too much new going on outside of the recent launch. And baby, I don't got that money. I don't have a lawyer. I have nothing. So, as mentioned before, anything that is done on here is done for free. Specifically, if I were to crowdfund, it is just to make sure that I can do the comic, not to give out the comic at all. And if I was to give out rewards, it is giving early access to the comic to those who have contributed. And if I have any additional money, to give out free comics for those who have also contributed. And when it's all said and done, when a certain purchase has been made, a comic will come along with their purchase in my shop, which will be opening up soon. So also bear with me on that. A lot of people ask me, do I have a shop when it comes down to my art? And there totally will be again. Other than that, though, if you have any ideas on crowdfunding, or if you're also interested and think that I should continue with my crowdfunding idea, also leave that in the comments. Other than that, I really hope that I have done my job, which is bring new and old fans into this room and opening up a rainbow door into everyone's home. I want to thank everyone again, and hey, hopefully we can get this started. Other than that, I love you guys. Have a wonderful night, and I'll see you later.